wish I had known that would really and they were like, no. This one's, I know, I don't say that sit there on. I wouldn't even have it. Yeah. Bump bed, other things. Yeah. So he was talking about that. I was like, you could do that.
You need to have conversations. Scott, please. The meeting's going to start in about a minute, so if you could just quit the talking. Thank you.
The reason for that is by state law we have to tape. That's what all these funny little things hanging from the ceiling are. So we need to make sure that we pick up everybody's clear conversation instead of I think all the extras in the Hollywood movies used to mumble watermelon, watermelon, watermelon. That's what I was told anyway. 6:30. Okay, good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd rise, please, and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call of council. Councilmember Wozniak.
Here.
Flynn.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Wilms.
Here.
Burke.
Present.
Mr. Fowler is ill tonight.
Okay, before I begin citizen input, just a few things, because I don't think all of you attend these meetings on a regular basis, so this may be new to you. This is an ordinance. There are actually two ordinances. One is a rezoning, and one has to do with the regulations, and that's probably what most of you are here about. The zoning is more of a housekeeping item. An ordinance is a resolution, is a law, unlike a resolution, which is a will of intent of council to do something. So as a result, an ordinance is read 3 times before it's voted on. Now, typically that would be 3 consecutive council meetings, but not always, because you can also table, which means we don't think we're ready to move to the next step, so we're going to table or put it aside until a future meeting. A case in point is the septic ordinance that we worked on for over a year. We started in 2020 in December, and we ended in December of 2021 because there was a great deal of work to do. So we just tabled it out there so that we could go through the process, have the citizen input, have discussions between all of us on round tables, etc. And that doesn't stop us from doing that here either. The main thing to remember is we're in no rush over this, because if you rush into something, you're not going to have a better product than you would if you had the conversations that you should have had in the first place. Okay? Now, this evening, unfortunately, the author of the ordinance with the regulations is ill, so he's not here tonight. And so he has asked me to ask council to table the first reading until July. And I'll ask council if they will approve to do that at the appropriate point in time in the meeting. And what that means is we will stop the 3 reading process right in the beginning. We'll actually defer it out to July. And then as we move through, there may be obvious need to have more discussions, more meetings with all the stakeholders, and we could bump it out for another month or two. Okay? So, a lot of you have signed up tonight. Each person has 3 minutes, and we will time it as a courtesy to the following speaker. Our ordinance for this type of thing states that the input time can be no longer than 30 minutes. So that's 10 speakers. However, if council so decides, they can suspend the rules and they can change that length of time as we progress. Or, since Councilmember Fowler, who wrote it, is not here, and you feel that you would like him to hear your comments, and I know that he wants to participate in the conversation, then you can simply let me know when I call your name. I'm going to defer until July, when the first reading is rescheduled, and I believe that Councilmember Fowler will be finished with his illness and he'll be here. Okay. So
Mayor Christie?
Yep.
Given that, I move that we suspend the rules and allow all residents who signed up to speak today, allow them the opportunity to speak if they choose to do so.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? That was seconded by Mr. Wilms.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
we'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Okay, so that's the first set. So you can speak as long as you want, or you can defer until July.
Still limited to 3
3
minutes.
Still 3 minutes. As many of you as you
3 minutes.
talk for 3 minutes. You can't talk for as long as you like. But I know some of you in here, we'd be here probably having breakfast in the morning. So apologies for that. Okay, let's start. Larry Kelly. Sorry, you were earlier. There you are. So if you state your name, address, please.
My name is Larry Kelly. I'm a real estate broker here in the market, and I live at 12506 Collar Lane in Bentonville. And I'm really glad that the discussion is to table the issue. I feel like that there's a lot of conversation that needs to take place. There's obviously a lot of passionate opinions about these issues on both sides. And I really would like Councilman Fowler to hear some of those. So I would recommend, and I won't take all the time that I had planned, but I see some things here that are duplicitous a little bit. Noise ordinances, parking, those kinds of things are already available to take care of some of the complaints that are happening. I've been involved in short-term rental conversation with Fayetteville City Council as well as Bentonville City Council. Short-term rental seems to be the hot topic around the country. And so many municipalities are trying to figure out how to deal with that and how to address some of these issues. What was kind of interesting back last winter when we were dealing with Fayetteville is that, you know, the real question was, how many serious complaints do you have? What are the actual issues? And when it all came out, it was actually like 3 complaints in 3 years. That seems like a solution in search of a problem. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily the situation in Bella Vista. We had vacation rentals operating here for a really long time. I don't recall there being a big deal about those things. Occasionally, sure, maybe so. But I'm in the real estate market. I never heard a lot of pushback. So those are some of the things that I think are good alternatives to what we have in front of us as an ordinance. The other conversation, I'll address that first one, is that we really feel like that short-term rentals should be allowed by right, not by conditional use. So, and if you look at real estate law, in most places, renting your property or doing those things is a right. So I don't think it should be a conditional use permit. In addressing some of those things in the ordinance, like I said, I would really appreciate the opportunity to have a work group that would address some of these things and have stakeholders involved, folks that own short-term rentals in the market, to come and talk about how those platforms already regulate many of the issues that are mentioned here, and then to offer some ideas on some of the things that aren't being addressed. You know what, that's the approach that Bentonville took, and after having their planning department and citizen input, stakeholder input, they decided not to do anything with short-term rentals. Fayetteville went the other way. They decided to go ahead and pass an ordinance to do it on a one-year basis and to see
Your
how.
time is up.
Okay.
Sorry.
And nobody.
My 3 minutes.
No,
No, you can't do that.
And nobody signed up for Fayetteville. They weren't.
Thanks, Larry. Bill Williamson.
Good evening, gentlemen. Bill Williamson. My address is 4 Fulford Circle. I am the face of Out-of-Town Investment. I'm also known as Pink Lake LLC. I raised my kids here, spent 20 years from '99, stayed in short-term rental, and had to leave in 2019 due to COVID. I've got 3 short-term rentals, 1 long-term rental, and 3 lots. Trying to decide, do I build on those lots or not? Well, let's see what happens here to decide whether we invest elsewhere. My kids were raised here, Bentonville High School, Bentonville West. The reason we have the properties is it allows us to come back here and have family, Thanksgiving, etc. My dad still lives here. One of my 7 kids still live here. We use the properties for ourselves, and then we rent them out as supplemental income. So I'd encourage you guys have a hard job. There's no doubt this is difficult. You've got to struggle with the long-term residence, short-term, long-term rental. I just encourage you to go deep. I like the idea of the committee to go deep and understand what is the ordinance is really going to do. Because the big fear is you'd impose a $400 fee per year, backlog inspections, go around and find out that our homes are some of the best, well-maintained homes. Because I can tell you the capital I spend on my property is to make sure they rent and they continue to go up in value. And to find out that you still have a few people that are just upset because there's somebody next door that's not their permanent residence. So without pushing all the issues, I tell you, really go deep and understand each ordinance. Is that really applicable and fair to just short-term rental? Should it be applied to long-term rental? Should safety and condition of homes be applied to all residences versus just short-term rental? Because I bet you the short-term rental properties are some of the best, well-maintained properties in the area. So that's all I can say.
Appreciate it. Bryce Cole?
Does my time start when I get up there?
You don't have to run, it's okay.
Hey, so I'm Bryce Cole. I'm at 38 Swanage, and I'm also kind of the face of the out-of-town investor guy. We bought our home about a year ago on the lake in hopes of retiring there. I'm retired from the Army, but unfortunately I still have to do like a real job for a little while. So we invested probably over $100,000 into our house, so I'm really, really hopeful that this doesn't force me to have to sell like we did from our dream home in Breckenridge when they enforced some of these similar provisions. So really just kind of jump into it. Why is this room so packed right now? Because this gets down to the fundamental issues that we all really care about. Property rights, right? Taxation without representation. All of that kind of stuff is really what we're talking about here. Is this, and I think someone mentioned it, really a solution looking for a problem? So I'd like to start off by saying I really urge us to table this for at least a year and really, really dig into it and figure out what are the real problems we're trying to solve here, and do we have to rezone someone's house to solve that problem, which I do not think we should do, and do we have to come up with some of these ordinances, right? No other business run from anybody's home is being proposed here to have any of these other ordinances, nor are long-term rentals are being proposed, right? So I think we really should look into these just a few squeaky individuals that we're really trying to placate really for whatever reasons, or are these really truly problems? Because I'm really good friends with Mark and Charlotte and Kyle and his wife, my neighbors, and I just don't see these problems at all. I really want to urge everybody to consider tabling this again so that we have a much longer time to really dig into this. Several of the provisions here are just over the top and unbearable for anybody to really be able to have, and are just quite unfair and unjust and go against everything that I'm hopeful that we stand for here. First of which is the whole septic tank issue. That is just completely not based on fact whatsoever. and really is kind of just something that's going to be put on only short-term rentals, where regular folks that live in their home, or if they long-term rent, are not even being considered to have these kind of oversight on their septic tank. Our house in Breckenridge that we purchased as a 5-bedroom home. Turns out the city decided to enforce a ordinance around septic tanks based on no facts whatsoever also. And we ended up having to sell that house because the house 30 years prior was permitted to be a 3-bedroom house that someone had added on, right? And now it's gonna cost me almost 180 grand to dig that up and put in a whole new septic system. You're gonna find that that's probably very similar here, but there's data around these homes are really being occupied only about 60 to 65% of the time for short-term rental uses. So their actual utilization of this septic system is significantly lower than a long-term rental house where they've turned their walkout basement or office into a bedroom, or even they're just using the regular bedrooms. So there's just a lot of research that has to be done into that. Additionally, all right, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Julia Denniston, excuse me.
My name is Julia Denniston. I have 2 homes here. One I live in part-time. The other half of the year I live in California. And one's at 8 Plockton. And I have Julia's Lake House, which is at 9 Applecross Place. And I don't think I've ever had the cops called on me once. And one neighbor called to say there was a very loud car one time. And it ended up being one of my relatives. So it wasn't a renter. And both sides of me say they like our group better because they follow all the rules and they pick up all their litter. So I just think there's a lot of squeaky wheels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enrique. My apologies, is the last name Numo?
Ramos.
Ramos?
Hi, Enrique Ramos. She lived with me. I moved here about 6 years ago. Moved my family because we liked it so much. We moved here. I have done trail work as a mechanic at a bike shop. Right now we own 2 properties and 5 lots. And I mean, we're not like evil corporation, right? You know, that's our, you know, my 2 properties are like my paycheck every month. We take care of our properties. I take care better of the properties than my house. I have invested probably $100,000 in both houses, and I have not invested $5,000 in my house. You know, we keep the properties clean, up to, you know, standard. That way we get our super host, and we can get people back in our properties. You know, we got monitors for noise. So if they are making noise, they're having parties, we don't allow parties. We don't like people that have parties in our properties. So we have never had to shut down anyone, but we keep, you know, a monitor to see how much noise is in the property. You know, like, we don't want someone coming that have bookable properties coming in and our place is destroyed. You know, so, and I live in Bentonville, so we're always checking the properties, always speaking with the neighbors. You know, we have 2 small houses, and like the fee that you guys want, $400, that's a lot. You know, that's a lot for us. You know, I know you have to do like a permit and stuff like that, but you know, that's very expensive. For me at least. Like I say, we don't allow parties. We always tell the people staying, like, don't park on the street, you know. We go and check on them. You know, we put a lot of effort to be here. 3 people that have stayed in my houses, months later, came back and bought a house in Bella Vista because they liked it so much. You know, this is an awesome place to be. And if you push all these things for us to do it, a lot of us are gonna actually lose the property because we're not gonna be able to afford it. You know, we cannot redesign a whole septic tank. We just can't. We don't have money for that. And just look into it, dig deep, do some research on the problem, and let us, collaborate, like what can we do to make it better? Because if, like the other people have said, you go and look at our properties, they're way better, way cleaner than a lot of residents. We just have to keep it up to standards to make that.
Time is up.
There's the beat. Thanks very much. Damon.
Hello.
Hi.
Mine's going to be pretty short because a lot of people don't realize how much money that the short-term rentals actually bring into the city of Bella Vista.
Can you give your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Damon Wallace,
And your address.
51 Purfleet Drive. But I will leave this with you. There is actually a link for the Arkansas Department of Finance Administration website that shows the breakdown for 47 different, about 47 different NAICS codes, so you can kind of see what's actually bringing sales tax money into Bella Vista. So from May of last year, June of last year until May of this year, the short-term rentals, and it's classified as traveler accommodations. Well, as we know, we don't have any hotels here, so this is short-term rentals that the tax money being collected. $121,990 to the city of Bella Vista last year, or within the last year, from June till May of this year. So when we talk about that they're not bringing anything to the table, well, let's compare that up to some other industries that are here. So short-term rentals are in the top 25% of income generators for Bella Vista, as far as by the NAICS code. This is more than auto repair shops, which there are several of them here in Bella Vista, consumer goods retail, general merchandise stores like Dollar General. STRs bring in more money than Dollar General stores here in Bella Vista. And then also taxes collected from, guess what? STRs bring in more than wireless telecom, all their fees and stuff. So AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, STRs in Bella Vista actually bring in more revenue than that. So anyway, I will leave this with whoever. And so I just encourage you to go to the Arkansas Department of Finance website and pull these numbers and stuff and compare that up when we're talking about extra fees and all that. The fees are already being paid, more than enough to compensate. Thank you.
Michelle?
I'm nervous and I'm going to probably speak really fast.
No, just your name and address.
Michelle Chiaco, 51 Purfleet Drive. According to Black's Law Dictionary, private property is protected from public appropriation over which the owner has exclusive and absolute rights. Ownership, the bundle of rights allowing one to use, manage, and enjoy property, including the right to convey it to others. As an owner's private property rights consist of three basic elements: the exclusive right to choose how the property will be used, the exclusive right to any benefit derived from the property, and the right to exchange property with someone else on terms that are mutually agreeable by the two parties. The city should not determine how we enjoy our property, including sharing or renting it with others. Residential renting is just that, residential renting. Residential renting is not commercial use. Scott versus Walker Supreme Court decision in Virginia established that residential renting is not commercial use. The Wisconsin Supreme Court in a 6-1 decision concluded a restrictive covenant prohibiting commercial activity did not cover STRs. The Defense Travel Management Office of the federal government says Airbnb is not considered commercial lodging facility. 2 recent cases decided in Alabama and Arkansas, plus several other cases that have considered the argument that STRs equate to a business or commercial use, have uniformly rejected the argument. The cases speak with one voice. Residential use under a subdivision declaration is not transformed to business use when an owner engages in STRs. In 2018, the Supreme Court of Arkansas also determined that STRs are residential renting. It is not right to discriminate against the small minority of property owners who short-term rent. Concerning safety, home ownership, long-term and short-term rentals really should have no different requirements for the argument of safety. If any home needs to be inspected for safety reasons, then why not require it of everybody? Not that I'm saying to do that at all. Why wouldn't all homeowners be subject to the same types of inspections to keep the public safe? Because it would be unconstitutional. Ask yourself, would this ordinance be constitutional? Remember, you made an oath to the constitutions of your state and country. Bella Vista gets tax revenue and A&P from STR, not long-term rentals or resident owners. STR owners are already providing income tax income for the city that pays for things that might actually bring revenue to Bella Vista instead of it all staying in Bentonville. Protecting STR is a chance to start making Bella Vista competitive with Bentonville, and Bella Vista residents should be happy with this added tax coming in. And of course, you know Bentonville dropped their STR ordinance a couple of years ago. Will the city start permitting all residences? If the city does go forward with this ordinance, I would ask that existing STRs be grandfathered in. If not, it is potentially a partial condemnation of someone's property, per another city attorney that I spoke with. One last thing, Airbnb VRBO is no different than Etsy. They are platforms that collect payment and remit sales taxes for people like me. I do have a copy of the Arkansas Supreme Court decision to give you all. Thank you.
You did another 3 minutes, Michelle. Well done. Mark Blackwell. Ms. Blackwell?
Blackwell?
This is me.
Come on up.
I'm going,
You're the next contestant.
I really would like for the person that's doing the
Ordinance?
ordinance to hear this.
So do you want
But-
to wait until July, or do you want to do it now?
Well, my problem right now is that all we've heard is the good side of it.
You need to give us your name, please, and address.
Margaret Blackwell, 49 Walter Drive.
Thank you.
When I bought in one of the nicer areas of Metfield Courts, I was told it was a 55-plus community. Our street was peaceful and well-tended, very quiet, clean, not a lot of cars on the street, only people who lived in the area. But that has changed in the last year. We got Airbnbs. This is what I and my neighbors now have endured. One, we've had as many as 15 cars parked in the streets, driveways, and lawns, extending beyond where the renters were staying. Two, trash put out on the day that the renters leave, which is usually Sunday or Monday. The trash bin is crammed full, the bin lid will not shut, plus bags laying on the lawn. The wild animals get into the trash and strew it all over the neighborhood before trash is picked up on Fridays. This requires concerned citizens to pick up the trash. Three, some of the owners do not know what goes on at the Airbnbs. They have turned it over to a management company that is failing at their job of managing. They have misled with advertising the place, how many it sleeps, and post no rules of the community. Four, some of the Airbnbs are not adhering to property codes, which means our homes are at risk of devaluation. This has already become a blight to our community. Five, one cannot sit on the deck because of the noise and the cigarette smoke. How did we get from a 55-plus community to an Airbnb community without voting on it? One, the people who own these Airbnbs do not live next door or in the neighborhood, and some do not live in Arkansas. Two, people who are setting rules for the Airbnbs should have first-hand knowledge of the problem of living in a neighborhood with Airbnbs. Three, there should be a vote for letting Airbnbs be established in neighborhoods before it is done. I vote no. Why? It devaluates my home that I bought to live in the rest of my life. The fact that Airbnbs are being allowed in Metfield Courts has caused our community to become unsightly at times and cause distress to homeowners.
Marge, your time is up.
I understand
Thank you.
the constant noise
Thank
which
you, Marge.
can go into.
That's good. It's not easy standing up here.
No. Sorry.
Mike Millian,
Defer.
you going to defer?
Yes.
Thank you. We finally get to do that after talking so many times on the phone.
Yes, sir.
Sean Douglas?
I'm going to defer as well.
All right, thank you. Peggy Lucas?
My name is Peggy Lucas. I live at 23 Dewsbury, and I'm not an STR owner, and I am not against STRs. I've lived next to STRs in Bella Vista and have no issue, but that's not the case now. And I think that we could be dealing with the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the STR owners are causing 80% of the problem. So have a deep respect for my fellow residents, and but I think we need to acknowledge that there is an issue with 20% of the STR owners. The issue could be straight enforcement. So, and it's largely surrounded around parking and noise. And so who do residents call when, in our particular case, we have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath B&B who advertises 17 people. When 17 people come to a 4-bedroom place, you've got the noise, you've got the parking issues. It just so happens that the driveway is adjacent to a curb in the street. So emergency vehicles can't get through there, we can't get through there, and there's no acknowledgement that something needs to be fixed. So we need somebody's help, whoever it is. We need to be able to call the right people. We need to know that people are being accountable. Otherwise, the resident is going to keep calling. And out of respect for all residents, we just need something to occur related to enforcement.
Great. Thank you, Peggy. Brad Pope? And your address first, please.
Address is 4 Hillcrest Lane, that's in Bentonville. And name is Brad Pope.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. So there's been a lot of conversations like top level about different issues, but I think for me, septic is one of the biggest issues that's out there, so I wanted to take a deeper dive into that and really talk about my Bella Vista septic education. So we moved to the area about 14 years ago, and we had a septic tank for the first time. I live in multiple houses, all on sewer. You flush the toilet, it goes away, no problem. 4 years later, after not doing anything, all of a sudden we had to replace the tank, and actually I got off pretty easy with the amount of maintenance that needed to be done. Fast forward, a couple years ago, bought another house in Bella Vista, and went up and took a shower in the upstairs, went right down to the basement and mopped it all up because the person that was there before me, long-term resident, didn't take care of the septic tank, okay? I ended up taking a week of work to go, jet out the leach lines, et cetera, get it all fixed. Pretty expensive, but got it done. Third property that we bought, all of a sudden, they're selling it. I said, I've got one condition, right? It's a hot market. I want to have the septic tank inspected, right? And it was underneath a hot tub, underneath the deck. But we opened it up. Okay, now I can buy the property. I say all that to say, the big difference between the first property and the last property isn't because, like in the first property, I was malicious or negligent. I just didn't know. Right? By the third property, I knew. So the first thing is education for not just STR owners, but long-term owners as well, permanent residents. If you've never been on septic, especially a lot of the younger folks that are coming to the area, you got to teach, right? You got to educate. And the second part of that is when we talk about how do we really fix the septic issue, it's one thing to educate, you've got to have the right regulations in place. It's not by saying, okay, it's a 2-bedroom septic system, therefore 4 people. It's what's the throughput of the system? How do we make sure that the system is working correctly and put regulations in place like, hey, they need to make sure that they pump the system every X number of years, right? And they need to maintain the system. That's what's going to fix it. Since, I went through my septic issues, fixed the problem with the right maintenance, no issues. I think that's what we need to focus on for septic. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Maria,
I'm Maria Pope, and I live at the same place as Brad at Fort Hillcrest Lane, but we own houses here in Bella Vista on Lake Windsor and on Lake Avalon. You gentlemen know me as the woman who wrote you the longest email you have ever received. Extremely thorough, logical, well thought out, and so 3 minutes is really not long enough to recap it, so I'll just reiterate my comments with this. Gentlemen, I understand and support the desire to have a registry of STR properties here in Bella Vista and a registry of their owners for city use. We should be able to easily get in touch with any owner, long-term, permanent, or short-term, and I agree. But I will also say that this ordinance in its entirety was written with a lack of comprehensive understanding of short-term rentals and how they operate, as well as a lack of complete understanding of septic systems. I personally have spent over 8 hours corresponding with septic engineers and geologists, with 4 kids running around in the background, this week. My most interesting finding is that septic regulations are actually built around actual water usage, not bedrooms. Per BBB, a 2-bedroom septic like my own at 750-gallon tank is rated for 300 gallons of water per day. My home comfortably sleeps 14 at over 3,500 square feet, not too many people in there, and averages but 144 gallons per day, less than half of my daily allowance. Wow, that's with 14 people, not with 4, as this ordinance is proposing. In my peak months, at 100% occupancy, we average 245 gallons per day, well below my limits. Especially with regular pumping every few years, my system is at less of a risk of failure than my uneducated STR neighbors, who are lovely, but they don't know, they've never dealt with septic before. In fact, you see, my guests, as well as most guests, are using our houses as but a place to stay. They are coming here on their vacations, dining out, shopping local, and using very little water. Gentlemen, this ordinance's suggestion of restricting occupancy is based upon fear, not upon fact, and most definitely not upon science. To protect our city, I will echo what my husband said. The answer is not limiting the capacity of STRs and their underused septic system, but it's educating all Bella Vista neighbors on best septic practices, including regular inspections and servicings. I ask you please reconsider this portion of the ordinance with a scientific eye, and please let me know if you need any contacts. I'd be happy to send them your way.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Richard Huff.
I'm Richard Heffron. I live at 67 Raft Drive. We've been in Bella Vista for about 5.5 years. Been in Northwest Arkansas for 18 years. Moved my parents to Bella Vista because it's a great place. Last year, moved my in-laws to Bella Vista. It's a great place. We have 8 properties in Bella Vista. 3 are short-term rentals. One's a long-term rental, and we have 3 undeveloped lots that we're considering building on as well. About 3.5 years ago, Mayor Christie, you came to Kiwanis meeting, Bella Vista Kiwanis, and you talked about the development in Bella Vista. And a large amount of what your conversation was is just how great that people are coming in, visiting Bella Vista, really being drawn to Bella Vista by the trails. And when you finished your address, I'd ask the question, well, Mayor Christie, what are we going to do with all the people to retain that revenue that they're bringing in? Do we have plans for hotels? And I don't know if you remember your response at the time. I'll tell you, it was, there's not a lot of flat land in Bella Vista to build hotels. What we need is more vacation rentals. And within 2 months, we just bought our first, two homes to convert to vacation rentals based on that suggestion. And I've seen a stat recently, I think we've more than doubled the number of short-term rentals over the last, 3-4 years. And there's a reason for that. There's a demand. If there was not a demand for housing in Bella Vista, we wouldn't be here doing business. And so I have read in entirety the ordinance. I find it onerous. I find it restrictive, some of the regulations, and would really like further consideration. I want to keep my vacation rentals here. We own another one in Rogers. We own another one in Garfield. And they don't have such onerous regulation or restrictions. And I would rather just keep them here rather than divesting in Bella Vista.
Thank you. Mrs. Heffron? I'm sorry, I can't read the first name. Is it Margie? No?
Vanjie.
Vanjie? Okay.
My name is Vanjie Heffron, and I live at 67 Rath, and that was my husband that just spoke. And I would appreciate, thank you for letting us speak to you today. I would just like to speak from the perspective of a host, which is what I consider myself. I manage all of our properties. That's kind of my primary job. And it is extremely important to me that all of my neighbors are happy with our homes. So to the two ladies who have spoken and have had bad experiences, I am dreadfully sorry that you're dealing with that. We have had 2 phone calls ever over multiple properties in 3 years from neighbors that were upset, and we immediately dealt with that. I've also gotten phone calls about stray cats. I've gotten phone calls about limbs that are coming down. I've gotten all kinds of phone calls. I've also had neighbors who said, thank you so much for purchasing this house. It has been in disrepair for years, and the 3 properties we purchased, we have all completely redone them. They are not the same property. They've added to the value of the neighborhood. And the second thing I'd like to speak to is the perspective of my guests. We have probably upwards of 30% of our guests are coming here for the bike trails. Bella Vista got 100% behind all of this, and it's wonderful. They do have to have a place to stay. Most of them definitely prefer a house. They're coming in groups, they're taking showers, they go out the back door onto the trail. They also spend their money in Bella Vista. They shop primarily at Allen's and Harps, I will tell you, because I know. They ask me where to shop, where's the closest. And they like shopping local. They would prefer that to the Supercenter. They also go to Gusano's a lot, and Lake Point, and a country club. They spend their money here because they're staying here, and they return. I have return guests because they love the atmosphere, and I would love to keep the atmosphere of Bella Vista the way it is. I think once we start regulating, it can really get out of hand and become burdensome, and that causes me to have to raise my rates. There's just a whole plethora of problems. But at this point, I would say the feedback from people staying in these houses is they absolutely love the opportunity of staying in a neighborhood and being a part of it. And since I still have a little time, if you do decide to add some sort of regulation, it would be my encouragement to at least have a page that maybe educates new hosts a little bit. You can definitely call cities. If there's too much noise, I mean, as an owner, I've been able to deal with it. But if there's excessive parking, the police can come and deal with it if your guest is not willing to submit. And they mostly are. They're usually good. You talk to them, they're cooperative. And you know, even things like how you market your property can change the kind of guests that you have. And that's an education thing that I have learned in the last 3.5 years. Thank you.
Stacy Lamb.
Stacy Lamb, 16582 Birch Lane, Rogers, Arkansas. I emailed you guys a letter last Friday, and I did not hear back from any of you, so I had planned to read it to you tonight, but since this conversation is going to continue, I think that I will refrain and make sure that you get it later. But I do want to say that I'm a short-term rental owner and STR consultant, and I'm also an Airbnb endorsed community leader. As with any growing or changing industry, I fully understand the need for regulation, but I have deep concerns about the current proposed regulations from several different angles, and I urge you to seek real information, accurate data, and look at the actual long-term impact that these proposed regulations will have on your city, on your businesses, on your citizens, and even the travelers wishing to stay in Bella Vista. The majority of STR investors and homeowners are not so naive to think that this industry won't or doesn't require some level of regulation and standards. However, I urge you to continue to table these discussions until some solid research and discussion is done. I would love the opportunity to brainstorm with any of you. I could probably answer any question related to data when it comes to the STR industry, and I would be willing to do that for free and as much time as you need to answer any of the questions. And I think in the end, this information will allow Bella Vista to grow, to stay safe and attractive for travelers, and also for people like all these guys back here that are willing to invest millions of dollars into Bella Vista. Because in the end, the citizens of Bella Vista benefit from a successful STR presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Whitmer.
I defer.
Thank you. Emma Whitmer.
I defer.
Thank you. Kim Lindsay.
I defer.
Thank you. Linda Lloyd.
Good evening, I'm Linda Lloyd. I live at 102 Fairway Drive, and I'd like to applaud all of the STR owners that are here and obviously take good care of their properties. The problem is not with these folks. The problem is with the people who are not here and do not care. Just yesterday, we had an incident at 6 Ashwell Lane on Lake Brittany, where there was a lot of loud noise, a lot of profanity, a lot of illegal fireworks being set off, and the police had to be called. I looked up the owner of that property, and it's an LLC in Joplin. So there's no way to find out who to contact. So that is where a lot of the problems are, so the neighbors have to call the police. So I would encourage all of the STR owners here who are responsible to work proactively with the city to help us put together an ordinance that will solve the problem of these absentee owners. Thanks.
Thomas Thompson.
Good evening. My name is Tommy Thompson. I live at 3 Cawdor Lane in Bella Vista. Been here for 16 years. Recently, the house next to us, which is on the lake, was purchased and turned into an Airbnb. I'm not familiar with all of the real estate laws. I'm not familiar with septic systems. I know, as one of the first gentlemen said, that parking and issues like that probably are already on the books and addressed in a certain way. I would like to see Doug when he's available, but there are some things that are common sense as well. For instance, the house next to me, which I helped the fellow that owned before renovate, was a 2-bedroom house turned into a 3-bedroom house. Now that septic system, irregardless of, and I'm sure you're going to say it was grandfathered, but the house is being advertised as accommodating 19 people. Common sense says that that septic system can't handle that. As far as that goes, they've just started to rent. And by the way, if I get winded, my wife defers hers.
No, we'll do them both.
Thank you. The first set of people that came there were 13 cars in the driveway.
Into the mic, please.
Nope, sorry, I'll get it right up here. First set of people that came had 13 cars in the driveway. That's too many people as far as I'm concerned. The second set, this has all occurred since about April when he first started doing his Airbnb. The second set was a bunch of cars with young boys from Texas and Oklahoma. The first pickup truck that pulled up got out and urinated in front of the door. Now, I don't consider that very healthy or very nice for my wife to look out of the window and see some guy doing that. So it's things like that that happen, and I know that there are other people in this place that have rented none of the big ones, the big place on the lake. I know the neighbors in those areas, and that same thing has happened. People partying, urinating, partying, urinating. So, thank you very much. Anyway, so I really think
Oh,
that...
that's it, Bill, it's time for your wife.
Pardon?
That's it for your 3 minutes.
Well, my wife defers.
Cynthia?
No, you can't do that, Mayor. It's
You
three,
defer?
3 minutes of power piece.
She gets the other 3. She gets
Cynthia,
her
come on
3.
up.
She defers it to me.
No, you can't do that. Sorry.
Okay. Then I'll stop there.
But I have made a note that you'd like to speak to Mr. Fowler.
Okay, but you get the idea.
Thank you. Lindsay White.
Hi, my name is Lindsay White. I live at One Tall Lane in Bella Vista. I'm here in behalf of both being a resident and I also work for homeowners of the short-term rentals. Bella Vista was founded in the early 1900s as a vacation destination place. It wasn't a retirement community. It wasn't a biking community. It was because it was beautiful. And that's why everyone comes here and enjoys this. I can speak for a few of my homeowners that I work for who are retired or soon to be retired. They have these homes, they live in them partially, and when they go and visit their family, they're able to short-term rent them, which supplements their income and helps a great deal, for that. I do have other people who are potentially going to retire here. This is their investment. It is paying the bills until it's time for them to retire here. They have invested a great deal of money in keeping this property up. They are purchasing homes that I really don't know that regular residents would be purchasing, really. So it is definitely coming in as an income for Bella Vista. Nobody wants to have a hotel here. We all are introverts in Bella Vista. We like it quiet, lights out at 9 o'clock, I think it is very important that there is a local point of communication when it comes to the other people who live around the homes and the short-term rentals, just because of issues, I do also wonder about the sewage issue. I have had four homes who are townhouses, 2 of them being on the lake. All of these houses have been newly remodeled, everything from the ground up, and we've had continuous line issues. 2 of them near the lake, it's really kind of, when I have people come out to clear the lines, it's really confusing to them of how to even access the lines because they're in between other townhouses and there's no access point for them. So they end up having to pull the toilet from the bottom of the townhouse to find the issue in the line. And usually the issue in the line is nothing even big. It's like one flushable toilet, paper. The flushable wipes are not flushable wipes in galvanized pipes, So if money was being put into place, sorry. Sorry.
But is Maria still here?
Yes, sir.
Perhaps you could link up. Did you have extensive research?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. And thank you very much for speaking this evening. Okay, Kevin Foss.
Hello, my name is Kevin Foss. I live at 30 Carroll Drive. I own 17 lots in Bella Vista and 2 houses. I have a few points to make. Some of them are in some literature that I'd seen at the earlier informational meeting that we had here. I would just like to say that in addition to living here, and it's mostly why most of us moved here, Bella Vista is a recreation destination. And as such, you would expect to see a higher rate of short-term rentals. I do think there's probably a delineation between townhouses for short-term rental and single-family houses for short-term rental. I would like to see if a lot of these so-called complaints are coming from the townhouses versus the single-family. Mrs. Blackwell in Medfield Courts, those are townhouses. So I could imagine that living wall to wall with a short-term rental could be a different experience than a single-family home short-term rental. There's bad apples in people using Airbnbs as well as people that are permanent residents here. We've seen bad behavior by permanent residents as well. Some of the parking violations that are attributed as if it was just because of the Airbnb's increase, could also just be attributed to there's plainly more citizens living here. I'm curious if other home businesses are being regulated. For instance, dog breeding is allowed in Bella Vista, and talk about a nuisance. I actually know a lady with 16 dogs. And this is my way to make a living, to generate a retirement income. And I would vote for a no condition for use. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Is it Lauren Gentry?
I defer.
Thank you. And did I pronounce that correctly? I'm
You
sorry.
did.
I did?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. That ends the citizen input. I want to thank all of you. Sir?
I signed up on a sheet when I came in to speak. My name's Terry McConnell.
Oh, there's another one. In the back. Bill Williamson? I thought you'd already spoken, Bill.
I did.
Okay. I guess you got on there twice. Jesse Keller?
Hi, I'm Jessie Keller, 67 Tree Lane, Bella Vista. I was here last week during your work session, and it became clear to me, with all due respect, that y'all really have no idea how an Airbnb or VRBO short-term rental works. I would invite you to pick one in Bella Vista. Treat yourself to a staycation. Find out how one works. Get wild and crazy if you want, and break a house rule or two and see what happens. You'll find that there is usually a list of house rules which miraculously line up with the POA rules and go even beyond that. And so I think you would be surprised how one actually works. There have been a lot of complaints. Having a lot of people somewhere isn't really a valid reason to regulate somebody else. If there's a problem, that's one thing, but just there being a lot of people, sorry, that's just not a reason to encroach on my rights in my home. Short-term rentals, as you'll find out if you go and stay in one, are self-regulating. I am there, I've done long-term rentals for years and years and years, and I'm just starting to do short-term rentals. I've had far more problems with long-term rentals because I think I'm not in there every few days to inspect and to see exactly what's going on. And so I'm there so often that I can see exactly what's going down in my short-term rentals. Owners are inherently incentivized to make sure that these homes are beautiful, that they are well maintained, that people are following the rules, and the tenants are likewise incentivized to behave well, because if they don't, they also are reviewed every time they are able to be reviewed every time they stay somewhere to on how they were as tenants. And if you have a bad review or two, people will not rent to you. They do not want to rent to people who are bad either. We want good people that are in there because it's less of a headache. I'm sure some of you may have owned a business. You want to deal with people who are going to give you as little headache as possible, right? Many of the regulations are focused, I feel like, on hypothetical situations. It feels a little bit Minority Report to me. Like, well, you know, he's probably going to commit a crime, so we'll go ahead and punish him for that now. Something that I was concerned about also with the layers and layers of government that we have in Bella Vista is the addition of another entire department to manage this entire short-term rental situation, which is what the excuse was given why it had to be a $400 fee to have another department.
Thank you, Jesse. Wayne Peterson.
Thanks for the time, gentlemen. My name is Wynn Peterson. I live at 17 Fulkingham Lane. And I support regulation. I mean, it's important for us to have regulations and understand how we need to behave because we live among each other. But regulations also cause friction and generally cost time and money. My wife and I and kids moved here, 5 kids, 16 years ago, and we've absolutely loved Bella Vista. I think it's a fantastic place. When we moved here, it was clear to us that we were moving to a town that wasn't normal, right? I mean, vacation rental signs were all over the place. It was clear that a lot of residents lived here all the time, but a whole lot of houses were owned by people who didn't live here year-round and did rent their property out. And we kind of knew coming in that that's what we were moving into. I think Bella Vista is the realization of a dream that the Coopers had as a great place to get away. It's been a great place for us to live and get away from sort of normal modern city life. And naturally, being a place like that, it attracts other people to come and get away for a few days as well. Vacation rentals business was then, is now, and I think will continue to be a fairly significant aspect of life in Bella Vista. And I believe we have regulations and rules and laws in place that address the unique challenges that presents. I was here last week and went through a lot of the proposed regulations, and it seems like the rules that we already have in place address pretty much all of those issues. We've heard parking, we've heard noise, we've heard all these things, and it's like, I think we have rules in place already that address those. And as property owners, I live here and I also have a short-term rental, we agreed to live by those rules when we bought property here. And if people aren't living by those rules, let's take resources and dedicate them toward enforcement of those rules rather than creating new regulations. I'll echo the words of others that, man, I feel terrible for the people who buy a short-term rental when they've had negative experiences. In our property, we have a book, and it says very clearly, she says, like, this is our neighborhood. We like it here because it's quiet. Keep it quiet, or you're gonna hear from us. If your property has a problem, like a broken window, or a limb that's fallen on a tree, or ants, or a dishwasher that doesn't work, you find out very quickly that you get a 1 or a 2-star review. Hey, great place, but this didn't work. And your property, that's an income property, becomes an empty house. So you're very motivated as an owner to fix those things and keep the house up very nice. I think government naturally tends to just grow as we in good faith try to put regulations in place to solve problems. But I think anytime we propose new regulation, we have to ask ourselves, what problems is this new regulation going to solve that existing regulations don't already address? And if we can't ask that question pretty clearly, then I would say, let's not put more regulations in place. Let's spend more time and effort toward enforcement and finding out how, like the woman said earlier, How do we contact, who do we contact, so that we can solve problems when those regulations are being broken? Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Jessica Green.
Hello, Council. Thank you so much for the time today. I am standing here. I'm Jessica Green. I live at 5 Rogan Circle. I am standing here today because I came to an Airbnb in Bella Vista and went, oh my Lord, this is amazing. And I proceeded to buy two lots to build 2 more homes on and a dilapidated long-term rental that needed $57,000 in repairs. For me to move in and to live in, I had to clean it and restore it before I could even sleep in it. It was that disgusting, okay? I just want to make sure I paint the picture real well. So I am a homeowner, I am a landowner, I am a business entrepreneur, I am a NICA coach for your Lincoln Junior High, I am a cycling guide for all of your trails, and I am also a super host and have been since 2018. I came from Houston, Texas. You do not get super host by looking pretty, talking sweet, and being nice. You get it through hard labor, amazing reviews. You all received an email from me, and I was here last week, and I saw that you guys needed to actually educate yourselves. You don't know what Airbnb is. Everybody calls Airbnb Airbnb, but they may be talking about VRBO or other different platforms. I want to encourage you to educate yourself. Becoming a superhost takes time. And in regards to superhost status, we are required to have safety precautions in our house. We have to have carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, other services. I even go above and beyond what Airbnb says because I do not want anything bad going on in my house. And I also rent out my basement, so I live above. Why on God's green earth would I want something bad going on downstairs? You know, I used to be a police officer. I think I'll go take care of it. My husband's retired military. We're here to bring our friends, our fellow cyclists, and other lovers of nature to this amazing place. We are also required to collect taxes. We are required to have insurance. We are required to have a no parties policy. I please ask you to take the time to understand how these platforms actually operate. Some of your violators are not only violating your ordinances, but they are violating their own platforms, and you can report them, and no one wants to lose Superhost. One bad review takes 100 to fix. That's a pretty big standard of excellence. So please take the time to educate yourself. If you do have a problem, Airbnb is the platform I use because it is the most professional in my opinion. They also have a portal called City Portal. So if you have a problem, you can go to cityportal.com and you can file your complaint there.
Thank you. Nathaniel Green.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Hopefully. Well, as my Nathaniel Green, 5 Rogan Circle, as my platoon sergeant said, it's always morning somewhere. So, one of the main things I really wanted to bring up was that, from what I heard once we first moved here, was that about the history of Bella Vista that started out, as was already said, as a vacation, as a resort. That there was a lot of different folks that came here because of the natural beauty and the desire to live here. And the short-term rental, as it exists today, is really just an outgrowth of that same idea. It's just used in a different platform. So there's already some kind of existing vacation rental organizations, catalogs, books, all those things in the past. Airbnb, VRBO, all those things are just that same idea, just taken into the future. And as my wife said, and has been said by plenty of other folks, is that if you don't maintain what the standards of that program are, you're not going to be able to even maintain that business because of the simple fact that people don't want to stay with you. So again, I'll say, has been said by multiple people, is that there are existing regulations, laws that Bella Vista has, that the county has, the state has, that cover the majority of things that are being talked about, whether or not it's any kind of complaints, the tax issues that have already been hit on, that there are taxes that are being gained through these different programs and in turn brought back to the city, so that there's plenty of positives while there are negatives, because people do have problems. And it has been said, a private list of the folks that operate some kind of short-term rental that is only used by the city as opposed to being public, because one of the main things about a public list now means that, well, if I'm a criminal, I can go to that list and find out where all these properties are and just look that most likely they're going to be empty during the week. I can go in there and rob that place. That's the biggest hazard there on just that one issue. So there's plenty of things that can be addressed with, like I said, the existing regulations. So hopefully I'm close to time.
We'll tell you.
Okay, so one of the other things I did do is I was reading through the published ordinance, going through, and I did my own research, and it seems like a lot of the ideas that were put forth in that ordinance go back to at least one research paper that was written by a UNC professor that went back to 2015, and 2015 was a lot different time period than 2022. Things have changed a whole lot across the entire country when it comes to short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Gill?
I defer.
Thank you. Jill Wilkes?
My name is Jill Wilkes, and I live at 43 Cardinal Drive. And I agree with a lot of the things that have been said.
Into the mic, please. Thank you.
I agree with a lot of the things that have been said for both sides. I work with the company that manages short-term rentals, and we do a lot of work with vetting our guests to make sure that we have good guests that come in, and if they are not good, then we do not allow them to rent with us again. One of the things that hasn't been addressed is I think there was something saying about a 29-day limit on the rentals. We have a lot of guests that their house, they live locally, their house is burned down, they need to stay somewhere for 6, 8 months to a year, but don't have furniture. They don't want to have to go and purchase all of that. And so, travel nurses that come for, a 90-day stay at the hospitals, and people that have special assignments with, Walmart or some of the big companies that need a longer than 29-day stay. So if that's something that could be kind of considered as renegotiated a bit. But that's all I have.
Good, thank you. Terry McCollum? Hi.
I'm Terry McConnell. I live at 85 Forfar Drive.
Thank you.
And I'm really sorry that the author is or disappointed that he's not here tonight, because as much as anything, I wanted to commend him on what I think is a well-written ordinance. I'd like to commend the whole council. I think you've done a lot of work on this. I'll take exception to the people who think you don't know what you're doing, because I like the ordinance. I would not think that there's a great reason to continue to table and postpone this. I think something needs to be done. It's not a solution looking for a problem. We have a vacation rental house right next door to us, and it is a problem. I've sent letters in the past to the council when you had your workshop. I'm not going to go into all those again, but we've had a lot of problems. A lot of trespassing, unruliness, loud parties, obscenity, some of the things that other people mentioned. I've heard from the people that own these tonight about how much time, how much work, how much money they put into them. Well, that's probably true. Why would they have a problem going ahead and doing what this ordinance asks? The application process is not that difficult. It's not that expensive. If you're going to do it, go ahead and do it right. Section 5, limits and restrictions. I brought it up here. It's 3 sentences. This ordinance is not to put people out of business. It's just to regulate and make sure they're doing it right. I don't know how you can look at 3 sentences of limits and restrictions and consider that onerous. It's just not. You know, it talks about how many guests they can have. You've heard from other people, overcrowding these houses is a problem. You know, and I can go to the websites, I look, and they've taken what appears to be a storage room and crowded a bed into it. There's no windows, there's no second way out, there's one door in and out of a bedroom, which I don't think is allowed anyway. The inspections would bring that to bear. I go to websites, I've seen another room that has 7 beds in it. I mean, how is that something you're gonna find in a single family residence, and how is that safe? Put 7 beds in one large room and call it a dorm room. The restrictions on parties, corporate meetings, similar activities, related parties, that would solve a lot of problems, because people are renting these houses for bachelorette parties, bachelor parties, weddings, corporate events. You know, 2 weeks ago, the caterer told me they were cooking for 100 people.
It's very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. Grace Chan?
I really like to have my time to him to finish what I'm trying to say. Grace Chan, 28 Greening Lane. I never thought I would be here until last night. I wake up at 11 p.m. Somebody shoot a firewall. And try to go back to sleep until 11:30. I called police. And police said, yeah, some officer should be on site soon, just give it a few minutes. This is just last night, okay? We moved from Texas. It's really pleased with this place. It's friendly, I mean, peaceful, relaxed. You don't worry anything. You can just open the window curtain at night time. Don't worry. But since April 1st this year, we actually built 5 brand new houses. From last year to this year. They opened 2 brand new Airbnb in front of my house on each side. They can have a car. People been talking about 4 cars to the 10 cars on the corner side, on the 2 side. And we go out, have to watch. Before watch all the truck built in the house, and then we watch all these renters going in the house. And they have loud music until 10. And I know some a lot of super hosts here. They put some monitoring the voice or noise. They should put outside the yard too, because you can hear at nighttime it's the music outside. A dog the dog barking too because of noise, I guess. Just a lot going on, seems like. We want to know it's regulations. Who can call in this case? I could not even know who owned this house. And only call police. I don't want to call police at 11:30 or 1 a.m. And plus, there's so many cars around my callers at 11, 12, 1 a.m. I don't know, they're just coming back from whatever vacation. So it's just, I have to close all my curtains at nighttime. I have to just be watched in my house now. One night, my neighbor texted me, is that okay? Somebody dump your trash into their truck. I say, it's 9:30. I say, why somebody want my trash? And she said, they're outside. So I open the door, I say, hey, hello? And I'm live here. And they say, there's 2 young guys walking down with my trash can, say, oh, we just dumped your trash. We work for Airbnb. I said, I'm not Airbnb. I said, this is my house. They said, uh-oh, we got a wrong house. It's just, maybe just one incident, but it's just, it's totally changed my life, kind of like. It's okay, people come to enjoy same lifestyle we enjoy, but we want to know, is there a regulation? Can they park anywhere they want to park? Can they respect others, neighbor here? That's all I want to address. Who can call?
Great, thank you, Grace. James Schlunke? My apologies if I didn't pronounce it correctly.
After 65 years, I'm used to it.
I'm James Schlanke. I live at 23 Harborough Lane. I live directly across Lake Brittany from 6 Ashwell Lane, which last night was so much fun to be across from. As I stand on my porch with my grandchildren that woke me up because there's a bunch of noise going on, we got to listen to the language that I used to use when I worked on offshore rigs, floating into the ears of my 10-year-old grandkids. Drunk behavior going on, throwing things. Then they start setting off artillery-style fireworks. What would I do? I call 911. Police show up. 2 units outside, setting off artillery shells over the hoods of the police units. As far as I could tell, no citations issued, no arrests made. Noise continued on afterward for another 2 hours. The problem here is we have people, the business model of Airbnb or short-term rental is make money fast. You make money in a weekend that you would have to work for a whole month to get from a long-term rental. It's just, if you're not going to enforce the rules of the city, you cannot set off fireworks before January 3rd. You can't, you have to stop shooting fireworks July 5th, July 3rd, July 5th. If you're not going to enforce it, the only message you're sending is come to Bella Vista, do whatever you want, we don't care. The message you need to send is fine, have short-term rentals, but your tenants need to be vetted, they need to obey the laws, and if they disobey the laws, you probably going to have some skin in the game as well. You should pay the fine as much as they do. In fact, make it to where the STR owners have to pay double or triple the fines that the people that disobeyed the law. Look, old constitutional scholar once said, the right for you to swing your fist ends at the point it meets my face. The way we're learning things right now with the situation is people are profiting from making money or profiting from the lifestyle that we all invested our hard-earned money to get away. I came here to get away from Dallas. That is not behaving. Now, this isn't the first incident on Lake Brittany that's happened. This is the 3rd time in 3 years I've had to endure that. And it's because no one is vetting their clients. No one cares. The guy that owns the house is in Joplin, Missouri. I spoke to them. We'll look into it. So sorry. Well, great. My 10-year-old now knows, my 10-year-old grandson now knows MF, mofo, you know. Why are we wanting to degrade the style of life that we all came here to enjoy? I mean, all you're doing is you're importing the crap we came to get away from in Bella Vista. And you're allowing someone to profit from that import. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Bill Rogers? Mr. Rogers?
Question, sir. The councilman who wrote this, is he going to listen to this recording?
I would hope so, yes. It's on the TV.
Will he watch it, though? He'll see it?
He has the option to see it, you bet.
I would hope he would. Okay, thank you. So my name is Bill Rogers. I live in downtown Bentonville, but I own a home at 42 Lavenden Circle Drive, as well as a lot next door to that. My main focus I'd like to have on this would be 2 things. The first is, and other people have spoken this as well, before we start talking about adding a whole bunch of new regulations, just enforce what's on the books. This is actually heartbreaking. I own an STR, and that's heartbreaking to hear that this man had to endure this. And my neighbor has my phone number. He knows he can call me anytime, day or night, and it pains me when I get a call and he's had any problem with one of my guests. It really bothers me. So let's enforce what's on the books. For the cops to show up and not do anything about this, I don't know the whole story, but that's troubling to me. So enforce what's on the book, whether it's trash, whether it's noise, you know, whatever it may be. Let's enforce what's on the books. Let's take care of the bad apples, because we're not all bad apples, right? So let's take care of the people who are bad apples. Focus our resources on where the problems are, not on everybody. So that would be my first comment. Let's just enforce the existing codes. let's take care of the bad apples and not worry about the people that are doing things correctly. The second thing is just on a couple comments about what's in the verbiage here, is that some of this is a bit arbitrary. So, for example, on the safety requirements, and sir, with all due respect, I see you're in here, it says safety requirements will be established by the mayor or the mayor's designee. Why should you or your designee be establishing new safety regulations? Again, we have safety regulations. Let's enforce the ones we got across to everybody, not just short-term rentals, long-term rentals, residents. We should all live by the same code. Everybody's home should be equally safe. And I'm comfortable saying that because my home is, you can look at my reviews online, it's called the Lakeside Treehouse. If I had a problem with safety, you'd know about it. I got almost nothing but 5-star reviews. Second thing, another thing that's a bit arbitrary, occupancy limits. So why should there be, and other people have spoken to this too, why should there be occupancy limits predicated on the septic system for short-term rentals, but for nobody else? So you could theoretically have a situation where, for example, I've got a 4-bedroom home, okay? That could have, per these rules, we could have 8 people in there, okay? But somebody next door could have 15 people with the exact same septic system, but they're not an STR, so not a problem. That doesn't seem right to me. The rules should apply equally to everybody. They should be enforced equally across the board. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I think I got it right this time. That's it.
I came in about 10 minutes before the meeting started. I didn't know where to sign up at, but
I didn't get the list either.
I was 5th on the list and haven't been called.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lori Frank?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on now?
Sure.
I thought it was because I signed in blue, but I wasn't. My name is Lori Frank. I'm at 8 Idaberry. That's I-T-E-D-B-U-R-Y. No one ever knows how to spell it. I'm a 100% retired veteran. My spouse and I own both short-term rentals and long-term. We use VRBO as well as Airbnb, but 99% of our guests are through Airbnb. I'm still waiting for my STR to pay a bill, and I'm really looking forward to making that fast money. All kidding aside, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. We just moved here not even a year ago, and I'm still waiting for it to pay off. But I've also put a lot of money into it. Through Airbnb, we are super hosts. We have amassed over 108 reviews and carry a 9.94 grade. We have professional lawn care weekly and pest control quarterly. We have a short-term rental insurance policy on our property. We meet all safety standards and then some. Airbnb pays our taxes to the state. We have had our septic tank pumped twice in 2.5 years. Noise is not an issue at my place, and if it is, I'm the first to know. Why? Because I live next door, luckily, to my rental. Trash is not an issue, again, because I live next door. We have parking for 4 cars and 4 cars only. That is explicitly set in my rules. And if they have more than that, they find another place to park. Parking has never been an issue on my street. Our daily water usage for the past 2 years is 113 gallons a day. That is well below what I'm required. We are unable to obtain our original septic permit. Why? Because the house was built prior to 1977, and all records prior to that were destroyed in some fire. To do so and get a septic permit, I would have to hire a septic designer to trace all of our lines and then submit as a brand new build. This will cost me a lot of money and time. Last October, we spent $10,000 on a septic grinder. The plumbers told me that it would chew up a pair of jeans if it went through that process. In December of last year, we get $10,000 upgrades to the STR. This allowed us to open up our downstairs to more beds, and we take 12. Some people would say that's not a true bedroom. Your permit will hurt us financially. We have signs in every bathroom and the kitchen educating guests on what can't go down the system.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it. Now, there were two of you that came in late. Was that it? Okay, so we have to have, it's a motion to accept the last two to speak.
Suspend the rules and allow them to speak if that's what you want.
Okay. Could I have your last names, please?
Humphrey.
Humphrey? And you, sir?
Rose.
Rose? Okay, entertain a motion to suspend the rules, allowing Messrs. Humphrey and Rose to address council.
For 3 minutes.
For 3 minutes? Not as long as you'd like, sorry. So moved. Second by Mr. Snell.
All right, roll call vote. Councilmember Wozniak?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Burke?
Yes.
Willems?
Yes.
Snow?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey, you're on deck. Could we have your address as well, please, when you get to the mic?
Hi, my name is Logan Humphrey, and I live in 2119 West Lawrence Circle in Fayetteville. So I am a local vacation rental, short-term rental manager. I manage over 120 vacation rentals only in Northwest Arkansas. We manage 10 properties in Bella Vista, about 30 in Fayetteville, 20 to 40 in Bentonville, Rogers, Garfield, Eureka Springs, etc. I've also created a short-term rental alliance to advocate for different responsible regulations, reasonable regulations, responsible renting, etc. I come here today because I've worked with many councils, offered my assistance in creating different ordinances with Fayetteville. I've worked some with Bentonville, Bella Vista. Now, hopefully, you guys, I can work with you. Rogers, a little bit with them, some with Eureka Springs. I'm here to basically say, after reviewing this ordinance, it goes against the grain of many different ordinances. You know, in Fayetteville, their application fee is $35. This one is $400. Now I understand it takes time. I saw from the notes that there are a lot of things are backed up for inspections. The property owner shouldn't bear the burden of the public's backups. Also, the permitting process often is most successful within cities and municipalities, especially, you know, backing it up for people to get licensed potentially up to a year, if the regulation just allows a quick and easy permit. You know, one of the things that we have, you know, as citizens of communities is to regulate businesses. There's no problem with that in my mind. We should pay our taxes. Airbnb pays taxes, VRBO does not, unless you have one individual property. Our company pays taxes through different companies like Avalara, My Tax Lodge. Anybody can get that to make sure a check is sent to you guys. When you register a property, it helps to solve the problems of different troublesome, you know, the example of the fireworks. If there's multiple complaints for this property, you guys are able to track it. You're able to see how many complaints happen towards a registered property. To have to go through all of these different systems, you know, all the different processes, it's not always the most essential as just seeing if there is problems to track. You can always come back 3-5 years if this becomes a problem. You have a lot of complaints, septic issues, people not keeping their properties up to code. However, we've heard tonight most people do, because as we all know, to get the good reviews, to get recurring business, you should be a good steward of your land. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose? May we have your first name and your address, sir?
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Rose. I live at 8 Laceby Lane in Bella Vista. We've been here about 1.5 years. We moved here from Bend, Oregon and Hood River, Oregon, and we left those towns specifically because of this reason. And there's two arguments happening in this room tonight. There's an argument that's pro short-term rentals, that's fighting against the ordinance that's written that has to do with safety and cleanliness and things like that. The other side of the argument is community. It hasn't been stated yet, but that's what it is. Nobody knows their neighbor, nobody knows how to contact their neighbor, nobody knows how to deal with the problems of their neighboring houses. That's community. I think that's why all of us moved to Bella Vista in the first place, is for a nice community in a nice area. I can tell you right now that we're a long ways away from where this place is going to go, Northwest Arkansas. And if you don't act now to protect this community will disappear. It will get overrun by people who don't live here. And while most people in here, I imagine, do take great care of their properties, I also own a motel in Bentonville. I've hosted over 1,200 nights since September on my property. For all intents and purposes, it's a 10-unit short-term rental. It's a motel. We list our property on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and our own website. Most of the problems are fine. We don't have many problems. The guests that come into this community are very good guests. They take good care of stuff. And they do want to go out and bike. They want to go on the trails. They're usually not in the houses. But they're still not your neighbor. You still don't know them. You're never going to get to know them. And you're never going to build a relationship with them. They're transient. In regard to safety and fairness across the lines, this Arkansas State Fire Marshal put a new ordinance in this year, 2022, that requires all transient lodging to have an automatic sprinkler system for fire suppression. But they cannot track that against short-term rentals because they're not on a commercial lot, and they're in a different permitting system. But it's there, it's law in the state of Arkansas. All transient lodging in the state of Arkansas that goes through renovation and requires a permit is mandatory to put in a fire suppression system. That's based on anything that's rented under 30 days. So if you guys want fairness across the board, that's a big, big, big coin to flip. I dealt with that in my motel. Protect the community, it's going to disappear. We're in ground floor 2, about floor 20, where we're going to go here in Northwest Arkansas. This is going to become the agricultural capital of North America. It's going to keep moving that way, and people are going to keep moving here. Your homes that everybody's buying and spending money on, those homes are still going to sell. There's still people coming here from California. You just might not be able to make money on the weekends. And that's what I prefer. I prefer to know my neighbors, to know the people I'm next to. If I leave my garage door open on an accident, I want to know that it's safe. I don't want to know that there's 20 people down the road that I don't know. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, my thanks to everyone. This has been a very good discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not all that easy to stand up and address, so I appreciate you taking the time. We'll now move on to the next part, and that's the council reply, where council members have the opportunity to reply to the comments and concerns raised by citizens during the previous session. All right, Mr. Burke.
I just wanted to add my thanks to everybody. You know what? I'm really... Can you hear me? Is this okay?
No, it was on before.
Yes,
Is this
sir.
better?
Closer
Anybody?
to the mouth.
All right, there we go.
You can turn it up a little bit.
Try that. Oh.
Oh, shucks, he found it.
I'm really, really proud of this community. The quality of the opinions that are spoken here tonight have been useful. They've been civil. They've been intelligent on both sides. I've seen, there's people that are concerned about their neighborhoods and what they're living next door to, and I've seen people that are short-term rental owners and operators. I've seen them acknowledge the other people, and this is great. This is part of the process. You know, one of the things that kind of restricts city councils in Arkansas is the Freedom of Information Act. And we were seeing this proposed ordinance for the first time last week. And because of illness, we were a little bit handicapped in how far we could go in discussing it among ourselves. We're not allowed to pick up the phone and call each other and say, hey, I think your baby's ugly. We have to work within the construct of our meetings, and that's what we do. And nonetheless, typically we would allow 30 minutes for public input. Here we are, what are we at, 90 plus minutes into this, but it's been useful. I think my colleagues on City Council would agree that we've learned a lot. I've stayed at Airbnbs for many years, And in fact, I stayed in Airbnbs when I discovered Bella Vista. In fact, I think I recognize Jessica. It'd be interesting to compare notes and see if in fact that's the case, but I probably stayed at one of her properties. In any case, this is one of the key ways that people discover Bella Vista. And yes, we're represented here by probably the best of our operators. And I think even the best of the operators would understand we might have some bad apples, and we have to figure out how do we address the least of the operators without taxing and putting bureaucracy on the entirety of the operators. That's our charge. That's what we're going to do. We weren't about to do anything stupid here. As I say, we saw it in work session. Several council members expressed some concerns over what we were seeing. We needed to move forward with the process. You guys are helping us with that process. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.
We'll go this way.
Okay.
Mr. Flynn?
Okay. I'd like to thank Steve for pointing that out about the Freedom of Information Act. This was actually the first time I had a couple people call me and complain about this before I'd seen it. We hadn't even had our work session yet. I guess a few people had seen it online. But the fact we can't talk to each other and pick up the phone and talk to Doug about it, we can only talk about legislation in the meeting. So I'm glad he explained that. I wanted to mention something I thought you might find of interest. I'm on the Advertising and Promotion Commission, and the other person who's on it is Doug, who's not here. And so I pulled out our budget for 2022, and we're estimating that we're going to get $114,000 from lodging. And it's a 2% fee, so that means that the annual amount of rentals would be 5.7 million. To get, you multiply by 50 and find out what the rentals are. So this is a big business in Bella Vista. And, you know, our sleepy little village, speaking of that, the restaurant side is estimated to be 19.9 million. And this is a big deal in Bella Vista. I really would like to thank everybody who spoke on both sides of it. And one thing I was impressed by this meeting, and I'd never seen this before, is people clapping when people spoke on the other side. I've never seen that before, and I thought it was very kind of you, because as the mayor said, it is hard to get up and speak. I think we really need to study hard on the septic part of the proposal. Besides the popes, I had other people write me and indicate what their usage was, and I just think we need to have some more learning there on what all that means and what makes sense. I don't want to get into all the details of it, but I indicated at the work session I thought 400 was too high. I understand it costs us money to do things, but you know, I think the fee should be $50, and I think the permit should be good for 3 years, and something along those lines. But I think there's a way to have regulation that does what needs to be done and tries to protect the people who need protected and still not be a big burden on business. I think that's doable, and we just need to do some studying to figure out how to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Will? I'm just going to go through everybody.
Oh, you got me off guard. I'll let
Okay, Mr. Snow?
Well, a couple of things. In response to Ms. Blackwell, I've spoken to a number of people who have...
Turn it up. Get a little closer to the mic.
Get the mic here a little closer. How about that?
That's better.
And in response to Ms. Blackwell, I've spoken to a lot of people who have lived next door to a short-term rental in the townhouses. And the Townhouse Association is responsible for a lot of the problems that are a lot of the situation. They can deal with a lot of it in situations that the city cannot, in that they have their own guidelines, their own regulations. They have again, their own guidelines and regulations. And I think that some of those are outdated and probably need to be updated. But they can deal with that, and the upkeep and the manner in which the property is not being maintained, that can be handled by the Townhouse Association. The parking, that would that'd be a city issue. We've heard a lot from people tonight. I did not know that there was somewhat of a not a townhouse, but somewhat of a STR rental group that is somewhat, I don't know how active they are, as well as Mr. Humphrey, who has apparently dealt with these issues, that could possibly provide a lot of information, a lot of input on further dealing with this particular ordinance. I don't think that we can deal with all of these issues by the July meeting. So when we get around to that ordinance in the list here, I'm going to propose that it be tabled for a period of at least 90 days.
Okay. Mr. Rups.
Thank you. I guess one observation might be is that the sales tax that was reported tonight, 121,000, some of that may be from other multifamily rental systems like the Greens, I think over by Reardon. There's some properties over there that may fit in that sales tax income part, so it may be misleading a little bit. I'd like to thank the folks who came and spoke tonight, both sides. I think it was very informative to hear the comments that we heard. First-hand experience of those who rent and own properties, those who manage them, and those who live next door to problem sites. And those are the ones that we heard a lot about when the Community Development Group held an information workshop one afternoon here about a couple of months ago, where this is precipitated. We had an issue, we talked about septic tonight, a considerable amount. We have one part of a two-part program completed that dealt with builders building new homes, dwellings, and then getting approval on a two-bedroom with an office area designation in another room, and a exercise or workout or whatever in the second room. At the time they get their occupancy permit, they would list it as a 4-bedroom home. And that was a problem that we were seeing all too frequently by irresponsible builders. We resolved that program, but it took us almost, Doug, a year to work through, to find language that was suitable not only to the realtors, the builders, but also to our staff, that was workable. This may be a similar issue that will take us some time. The septic issue was one that was paramount because we have a major portion of Bella Vista on septic, which is your treatment plant is on your dwelling site. Older ones, the records are less than accurate and complete. We heard some comments about that tonight, and first-hand experience myself just confirms that. We have sewer service in some areas of the city as a result of the developer finding some soils in Bella Vista are not very permeable for on-site disposal. So we do have a sewer system, but it's privately owned, a nonprofit group. They do a good job. They manage their system well. They're not able, at least at the present time, as I understand, to serve 100% of Bella Vista. They have plans for expansion. They have capacity at their plant. The collection system becomes the issue. The topography in Bella Vista is compounding that challenge for them. We know that septic systems, long-term, if well-maintained and not overloaded and abused, will last a lifetime. There's history all over the U.S. of rural areas that have septic systems that run for hundreds of years or 100 years without failure. So that's an area that the council is yet to embark upon, and maybe a partial solution to address the concerns that are in this particular ordinance. Thank you.
Chief?
Well, we certainly didn't open up an industrial-sized can of worms. And, you know, some of us, me and the gentleman on the other end, you know, all we wanted to do was find out who owned these places, so in case there was a complaint, we had some place to go. That's how it started. Well, like I said, it got a little convoluted. And in order to be brief, some of you have heard, your mind will only absorb what your butt will endure. You guys have been here for 2 hours. Thank you for coming. We will get this right one way or the other.
Okay, so I realize that many of you don't have agendas. We have 3 housekeeping items, and then we have 2 old pieces of business, and then right after that, the 2 ordinances, the zoning, and the regulations will be held. So it'll take a little bit, but it won't be a long while to get there. So you're welcome to stay, or you can follow some of the crowd that's on their way out. But again, thank you very much for coming, those of you that left, and also speaking in secret. If you can, folks, can you take your conversations outside, because we still have the mics going. Okay, council, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the May 23rd regular meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I think it was actually Chief and Mr. Snow.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Wozniak?
Yes.
Snow?
Yes.
Wilms?
Yes.
Burke?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Carried, 5-0.
Next is the May, not the March, financial report that our finance director has issued for the 5 months period ending the end of May. We are continuing to be extremely healthy. Our balance sheet is very, very strong, especially when you look at assets versus liability. Revenues are also doing well. And at this point, in talking with the finance director and looking out towards the end of the year, we really see no problem at this point. And if any of you would like to see it, you can let me know, and I can email it to you, but we usually have hard copies available in the lobby of City Hall as well. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read all proposed ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Was that Flynn, second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote again. Councilmember Wozniak?
Yes.
Burke?
Yes.
Snow?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Wilms?
Yes.
Carried.
Moving into old business, the first is an ordinance amending section 107-317, access management of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide clarification regarding access drive distance from intersections and for other purposes. This is the second reading. I did hear from Senior Planner Lynn today. They're still working on a couple of issues. He expressed special thanks to Councilmember Wilms for his assistance. If they have not worked out these issues by July, then they will ask to table, but they have no problem with the second reading this evening. Any questions at all?
What is the issue?
Well, Jerry, if you remember, that's the ability to put a drive close to intersections on a curve.
Is there a short version of what the issues?
Derek, do you want to give us the Cliff Notes again, please?
I sure can. So not so much an issue per se, but an opportunity to
to look at another section of code that is very similar to the subject that we have originally spoken about, and to try to, while we're making this effort, try to fix maybe another issue that we just had not captured previously. So just thinking a little bit more holistically about this topic. So if that's all it is thinking a little more holistically, making sure we're not missing anything, and as we do that, making sure that we have the appropriate details to move that forward. So,
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Okay, the second piece of old business is an outstanding resolution, which is renaming Mole Lane to Mac Lane. We tabled this in May, as council was looking for a thumbs up from the other property owners on the street. And there are 4 of them. We've heard from 3. And Planner Robertson told me today that they're still waiting from a reply from the California owners of 1 piece of property. Is that still the case?
I'm still waiting.
Okay, so therefore I'd entertain a motion to table to July.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Wilms and Chief Wozniak.
On the motion to table, Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Okay, now we're into new businesses, and the first 2 ordinances are the ones that we've been talking about tonight. So the first one is the zoning, and the second one is the actual regulations. So if we're gonna do anything with either one, they both have to carry on at the same thing. So if we're gonna table for X number of time, then the other one has to be the same, because there is a language that joins the 2.
I'm asking that they be kept together. Legally, they don't have to be kept together, but you've got a definition that's the same in both of them, and if we start making changes to one, we need to make sure they match. So I'm just asking that you all keep these 2 things together.
Are we able to put a table motion for both together, or do we do them separately?
You need to do them individually.
Individually? Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to, now let me put it another way. Let's have the discussion first, because of Mr. Snow wanting to put it out for 90 days.
Well, so, if I, he hasn't made that motion yet, so.
No.
You need to see if anyone wants to make a motion.
Right, okay. Anybody want to go for 30, 60, 90?
What are our options here, Jason?
Yeah.
Table indefinitely?
Well, if you can move to table it indefinitely and kill it.
Well, not to kill it, but to bring it back up when we're ready to bring it back.
Well, then I would suggest you just put some date on it. If you can say the December meeting, the September meeting, whatever you believe is appropriate. It's gonna start getting technical. If you want to table it indefinitely, and then you want to bring it from the table at some point, we've not done it that way before, and so chances are whatever was new would be different anyway, so it would be wise to just bring that forward and start over in that circumstance, I think, from a technical perspective. But you can table it indefinitely, or you can table it for a time definite. Sure, with the will of the council.
Okay, so I'm waiting for a motion.
Well, I would think that from what we've heard tonight, that this obviously needs considerable bit more work. And as again, we've have come to be known that we have a couple of organizations, a person, one individual, and an organization that of the short-term rentals that could probably have a considerable amount of input, some valuable input on this ordinance. So I will make a motion that it be tabled until the October meeting, October meeting.
Second.
Okay, anybody else want to discuss? Okay, so the motion is to table until our regular meeting in October. It's by Mr. Snow, and who's second?
Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Flynn.
Okay. Okay, on the motion to table?
It's just the first one. Ordinance C.
Yes,
This
for
is
ordinance
ordinance
C.
C.
Right.
Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Carried, 5-0.
Okay, the next ordinance is number D on your agenda. And based on what Mr. Kelly told us a minute ago, I'd entertain a motion to table ordinance item number D on this evening's agenda until our regular meeting in October.
So moved.
Mr. Wilms?
Second.
Mr. Flynn?
And these would be for first reading in October.
Correct, I'm
I just
sorry.
wanted-
Yes,
I
it's
think
first
that's
reading for
clear.
both in October.
That was Mr. Weston.
Okay?
Yes.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
Sure it does.
For the record.
For the record.
You got your points, you gotta keep.
Okay. On that, Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Now, folks, we have 4 more other pieces of business. You're welcome to stay. Or you can certainly get your evening underway. Okay, here we go. The next is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property designated in rezoning petition number 2022-43672, county parcel number 16-03464-003 from P1 Conservation to C1 Neighborhood Commercial. Staff is requesting third and final. Does everybody remember what this piece is?
I
Okay.
have a question, though.
Sir?
I have a question for staff. What is the neighborhood zoning surrounding this proposed C1 adjustment?
For our current zoning map,
Yes.
Yep.
R1, but the land use is commercial around it. But the zoning map, these items or those pieces of land around it were zoned as single family. Even though it's all POA,
All POA.
commercial.
So,
Amenities.
so you're talking about Reardon Hall, and then you're talking about the restaurant area
Top of
down below
mind.
and the golf shop.
And then privately owned tennis courts and private pools and all of that are in our commercial land use of private recreational, which is under commercial use.
Okay, so do we need to make other adjustments in the zoning in that area to correct things for usage?
Down the road, we probably should.
You don't have to adjust your zoning code to meet current usage.
No,
It's
you
all
don't.
allowed
You
as a
have- you have an
not pre-existing,
existing-
non-conforming
Right, you
use.
have an
I
existing
mean, the
non-conforming.
key is to follow the plan, of course.
Yeah, but it helps when
To
the
update
zoning
the
map
zoning map.
reflects what the uses are for other people moving to the neighborhood and for other folks. It really helps in terms of the restrictions as well as on the property for uses.
So folks, what we're talking about is rezoning a parking lot that is part of the Kingswood parking lot right at the far end that is seldom used. And the petitioner is the POA. So they want to change it from P1 to C1. Okay?
Did we want to go to, I thought we maybe wanted to go to third and final on this.
Yes? Mhm. So do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'd make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Wilms, second.
Motion to suspend the rules and go to
To
third and
move to-
final reading.
Right? So you're voting on a motion to suspend the rules.
Flynn and Wilms.
Correct?
Okay, Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
Okay, this is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2022-43672, county parcel number 16-03464-003 from P1 Conservation District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial. Is there any discussion?
Move it be approved.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Mr. Wilms, was it?
All right. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
Thank you. The next ordinance is amending Chapter 107 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to address grading plan requirements, grading and erosion control permits, and land alteration requirements, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. Staff is requesting third and final, and please note that there is an emergency clause on it as well. Any discussion?
I think this is probably long overdue in the event of some of the properties that have been built in the city over the past 50 years, I think, 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those were obviously pre-city government and building and municipal code compliance with the zoning code. So I'm pleased to see this move forward. And,
Okay,
Move to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
Mr. Snow, Mr. Wilms,
Okay,
you're voting to suspend the rules.
right. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
I'll read it again, amending Chapter 107 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to address grading plan requirements, grading and erosion control permits, and land alteration requirements, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That was the third and final reading. Is there any further discussion?
Move that be approved.
Mr. Snow?
Second.
I think Chief got it first.
Okay, roll call vote again. Councilmember Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
And then finally, I'd entertain a motion to approve the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second. We didn't do that with the first. We didn't do that with the first resolution.
Didn't have an emergency.
No, it didn't have it.
It didn't have a clause.
Okay, on the emergency clause, Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Okay, the next ordinance is waiving requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing a contract with Superior Automotive Group in the total amount of $171,412 for the purchase of 4 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicles for use by the police department. The request is for third and final. If you remember at the work session, Chief told us that basically he just can't get charges anymore, no matter where he looks, and we have found that there are 4 Tahoes available. He does have the money in the budget. Anything you want to add, Chief?
Not listening to any questions.
Okay, any questions for Chief? Thank you. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Snow and Chief. So you're voting on suspending the rules.
Okay, Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Fowler, excuse me, Wilms,
Yes.
sorry, Burke,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Thank you. Reading for third. Waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing a contract with Superior Automotive Group in the total amount of $171,412 for the purchase of 4 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicles for use by the department, by the police department. Is there any discussion?
Move that be approved.
Mr. Snow?
Second.
Okay, Chief?
Okay. Councilmember Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Okay, the next is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with L&M Office Furniture through a state procurement contract in the total amount of $364,356.63 for the purchase of furniture by the use of the police department in the new public safety building. Now, this evening, Mr. Kelly handed out an amendment, because at the work session, we were talking about the $364,000 figure, and last Thursday, the vendor said, oops, sorry, we forgot to give you a gasoline increase as well. And it was a 3%, which exceeded the budget, which is $370,000. And so the vendor was able to knock the price down to $369,999,999, meaning that it's a penny under budget. And so we need to deal with the amendment, Mr. Kelly?
Would ask somebody to move to amend to read as presented on the paper. And let me just say this also, for purposes of the minutes, in case it's needed at some point. This is a purchase that's proposed to be made through state procurement contract. And so one of the questions I had was, if there's a state procurement contract price, you can't just throw in a 3% increase because gas is expensive. So I wanted to make sure that that extra amount was included in the state procurement agreement. We got verification this morning, or at least I did from Chief, that in fact those procurement agreements were amended to reflect a fuel surcharge. So that makes it okay to buy it, and so I just want to make sure that that's clear for the record, that we are still making that purchase pursuant to the state procurement contract. But we do need to have a motion to amend to read as presented on the paper.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Flynn? Any further discussion? Mr.
That was Wilms and Flynn, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right.
This is
Roll
just
call vote?
on the amendment motion.
Just to amend it. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Now I need a final motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Snow and the Chief?
Okay. All right. Councilmember Wilms,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Thank you. Meetings and announcements. The next city council work session will be Monday, July 18th at 5:30 in the Bella Vista courtroom. The next regular meeting of the city council is Monday, July the 25th at 6:30 in the Bella Vista court. Planning Commission work session will be June 30th at 4:30 here in the court. Planning Commission regular meeting will be July 11th at 4:30 here in the court. And the Board of Construction Appeals, if needed, will be July 12th. I would remind you that the fireworks are this Saturday off the top of Loch Lomond. And I wish each and every one of you and your families a very happy and safe 4th of July.
Aren't there Sundays?
Yeah, I think it's Sunday.
I'm sorry, it's Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday the 3rd, and the parade's on the 4th. Right, Cassie? Thanks for coming, folks. We're adjourned.